All right. So the synopsis, all right, a little review of everything that's happened. So the book we're reading, Akotar, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Okay. So, little recap. Main character, her name is Feyre. All right. She has a family. She's the youngest sister. She has a middle sister and then an older sister. Middle sister's name is Elaine. Older sister's name is Nesta. She has a father. Her mom died when they were growing up. They used to be rich. They ended up being poor. And the little sister, Feyre, had to take care of the family because everyone else was kind of spoiled. The dad was injured, so couldn't really work. Feyre is a hunter, so she would like hunt all the time for food because that's what they needed to do to survive. So Feyre went hunting one day and found a deer. And right before she was about to go kill the deer, a wolf came out of nowhere. Boom, bang, bit into the deer. And Feyre decided to just kill the wolf and skin the wolf, right? And the deer. And took the pelts and the deer meats back home, ate the food, went to go sell the pelts, and found out that there's mythical creatures called fairies or fays, fairies, or fays. And the wolf happened to be one, and she didn't know that for sure. And as they're eating the venison one night, that's when a different fairy came in, a high fae came in, which is like a top-notch, super badass, you know what I mean? And comes in, barges into their cottage, their stone cottage, and they were like, what the fuck? Who killed that wolf? And then everyone's freaking out, the whole family's freaking out, and then Feyre was like, it was me, sup. And then the fae, was like, well, that's against the rules. Apparently they have a treaty. The fairy and the humans have a treaty where they don't kill each other, right? Unless provoked. And because of that, now Feyre has to pay with her life. And the high fae was like, listen up, I can kill you right now because the mythical creature had like antlers and stuff and like paws like a bear, and was like, you got to pay with your life. I can kill you right now, or I can take you back to my lands with the fairies and you can live out your life there. And Feyre was like, she was like, all right, fine, whatever, I'll go. And then she finally goes, and then they travel up north, okay, to go meet with the to go to the land. And the fae invited Feyre into the house, into their mansion. It's beautiful, and they're using some sort of magic. Keep in mind, this was in the winter. Where they were living at before, it was winter, it was snowing, it was miserable. And now in the high fae area, just 2 days north, it's like spring, and it's just like beautiful, not a cloud in the sky, super sunny, garden, beautiful, mansion, phenomenal. They're super rich, silk, gold, everything crazy. And they had amazing food, all this stuff. And I guess they're using magic to do that. And yeah, so we met the main fae who brought her in. Don't remember their name. Just, he's big boss man for right now, I think. And then we met the second in command of the big boss guy that brought her in. His name is Lucian. Sorry, did I get that wrong? Lucian? I think I got it right. Lucian. He has red, long hair, and they can turn into humans. So those creatures can actually turn into humans. Lucian, long red hair, mask. They like to wear masks, so that's like a thing that they do. And they would like to wear a little mask. Lucian was like injured, and he has like a scar from his eyebrow all the way down his cheek, and he's missing an eye, but it's replaced with like a golden eye, right? And Lucian was pissed. He's pissed at the new girl because apparently that fairy that Feyre killed was a good friend of theirs of some sort, and they really liked him. His name was I don't remember the guy. I don't remember his name that they killed, but yeah. So, and that's about as far as we gotten. So, and Andres, that was the name of the wolf that Farah killed. And then after meeting the second in command, the head in command person, they were like, all right, Farah, go with the servant, get cleaned up, new clothes, shower, everything. Servant took care of Farah. And then that was it. That was exactly where we left off. So, all right. Anyway, let's continue. All right. The golden hair, High Fae, and Lucian were lounging at the table when Alice returned me to the dining room. They no longer had plates before them, but still sipped from the golden goblets. Real gold, not plate, not paint or foil. Our mismatched cutlery flashed through my mind as I paused in the middle of the room. Such wealth, such staggering wealth, when we had nothing. A half-wild beast, Nessa had called me. But compared to him, compared to this place, compared to the elegant, easy way that they held their goblets, the way that golden hair one called me human, we were all half wild beasts to the High Fae, even if they're the ones who could don fur and claws. Food still remained on the table, an array of spices lingering in the air, beckoning. I was starving, my head unnerving light. The golden hair High Fae mask gleamed with the last rays of afternoon sunshine. Before you ask again, the food is safe for you to eat. He pointed to the chair at the other end of the table. No sign of his claws. When I didn't move, he sighed sharply. What do you want then? I said nothing. To eat, flee, save my family. Lucian drawled from his seat along the length of the table. I told you so, Tomlin. He flicked a glance toward his friend. Your skills with females have definitely become rusty in recent decades. Tomlin, he glowed. He glowered at Lucian, shifting in his seat. I tried not to stiffen at the other bit of information Lucian had just given away. Decades? Tomlin didn't look much older than me, but his kind was immortal. He could have been 100 years old, thousands. My mouth dried up as I carefully studied their strange, masked faces, unearthly, primal, and imperious, like immovable gods or pharaoh courtiers. Well, Lucian said, his remaining russet eye fixed on me, you don't look half as bad now. A relief, I suppose. Since you're to live with us, though the tunic isn't as pretty as the dress. Wolves ready to pounce, that's what they were. Just like their friends. I was all too aware of my diction, of the very breath I took as I said, I prefer not to wear that dress. And why not? Lucian crooned. It was Tomlin who answered for me. Because killing us is easier in pants. I kept my face blank, willed my heart to calm as I said, now that I'm here, what? What do you plan to do with me? Lucian snorted, but Tomlin said with a snarl of annoyance, just sit down. An empty seat that had been pulled out at the end of the table. So many foods piping hot and wafting those enticing spices. The servants had probably brought her new food while I'd washed. The servants had probably brought our new food while I'd washed. So much wasted, I clenched my hands into fists. We're not going to bite. Lucian's white teeth gleamed in a way that suggested otherwise. I avoided his gaze, avoided that strange animated metal eye that focused on me as I inched to my seat and sat down. Tomlin rose, stalking around the table, closer and closer, each movement smooth and lethal, a predator blooded with power. It was an effort to keep still, especially as he picked up a dish, brought it over to me, and piled some meat and sauce on my plate. I said quietly, I can serve myself. Anything to keep him away from me. Tomlin paused, so close that one swipe of those claws lurking under his skin could rip my throat out. That was why the leather baldric bore no weapons. Why use them when you were a weapon yourself? It's an honor for a human to be served by a High Fae, he said roughly. I swallowed hard. He continued piling various foods on my plate, stopping only when it was heaping with meat and sauce and bread, and then filled my glass with pale sparkling wine. I loosed a breath as he prowled back to his seat, though he could probably hear it. I wanted nothing more than to bury my face in the plate and then eat my way down the table, but I pinned my hands beneath my thighs and stared at the two fairies. They watched me too closely to be casual. Tomlin straightened a bit and said, You look better than before? Is that a compliment? I could have sworn Lucian gave Tomlin an encouraging nod. And your hair is clean? Perhaps it was my raging hunger making me hallucinate the piss-poor attempt at flattery. Still, I leaned back and kept my words calm and quiet, the way I might speak to any other predator. You're high fae, fairy nobility? Lucian coughed and looked at Tomlin. You can take that question. Yes, Tomlin said, frowning, as if searching for anything to say to me. He settled on merely, we are. Fine. A man, fairy, a few words. I killed his friend, was an unwanted guest. I wouldn't want to talk to me either. What do you plan to do with me now that I'm here? Tomlin's eyes didn't leave my face. Nothing. Do whatever you want. So I'm not to be your slave? I dared ask. Lucian choked on his wine, but Tomlin didn't smile. I don't keep slaves. I ignore the release of tightness in my chest at the moment. But what am I to do with my life here? I pressed. Do you wish me to earn my keep, to work? A stupid question, if he hadn't considered it, but I had to know. Tomlin stiffened. What do you do with your life isn't my problem. Lucian pointedly cleared his throat, and Tomlin flashed him a glare. After an exchanged look I couldn't read, Tomlin sighed and said, Don't you have any interests? Everything good, chat? We good? Sorry, I need to start checking up with yes? Okay. All right. I just need to start checking up with chat a little bit more. No, not entirely true. Sorry. Don't you have any interests? No, not entirely true. But I wasn't about to explain the paintings to him, not when he was apparently having a great deal of trouble just talking to me civilly. Lucian muttered, so typically human. Tomlin's mouth quirked to the side. Do whatever you want with your time, just stay out of trouble. So you truly mean for me to stay here forever? What I meant was, so I'm not to stay in this luxury while my family starves to death? I didn't make the rules, Tomlin said tersely. My family is starving, I said. I didn't mind begging, not for this. I'd given my word, and held to that word for so long that I was nothing and no one without it. Please let me go. There must be some other loophole out of the treaty's rules, some other way to atone. Atone, Lucian said. Have you even apologized yet? Apparently all attempt to flatter me were dead and gone. So I looked at Lucian right in the remaining russet eye and said, I'm sorry. Lucian leaned back in his chair. How did you kill him? Was it a bloody fight or just a cold-blooded murder? My spine stiffened. I shot him with an ash arrow and then an ordinary arrow through the eye. He didn't put up a fight. After the first shot, he just stared at me. Yet you killed him anyway, though he had made no move to attack you, and then you skinned him, Lucian hissed. Enough, Lucian, Tomlin said to his courtier with a snarl. I don't want to hear details. He turned to me, ancient and brutal and unyielding. I spoke before he could say anything. My family won't last a month without me. Lucian chuckled, and I gritted my teeth. Do you know what it's like to be hungry? I demanded, anger rising to devour any common sense. Do you know what it's like to not know when your next meal will be? Tomlin's jaw tightened. Your family is alive and well cared for. You think so low of fairies that you believe I take their only source of income and nourishment and not replace it? I straightened. You swear it? Even if fairies couldn't lie, I had to hear it. A low, incredulous laugh. On everything that I am and I possess. Why not tell me that when we left the cottage? Would you have believed me? Do you even believe me now? Tamlin's claws embedded in the arms of his chair. Why should I trust a word you say? You're all masters of spinning your truths to your own advantage. Some would say it's unwise to insult a fae in his home, Tomlin ground out. Some would say you should be grateful for me finding you before another one of my kind came to claim the debt, for sparing your life and then offering you the chance to live in comfort. I shot to my feet, wisdom be damned, and was about to kick back my chair when invisible hands clapped on my arms and shoved me back into the seat. Do not do whatever it was you were contemplating, Tomlin said. I went still as the tang of magic seared my nose. I tried to twist in the chair, testing the invisible bonds, but my arms were secured, and my back was pressed into the wood so hard that it ached. I glanced at the knife beside my plate. I should have gone for it first, futile effort or no. I'm going to warn you once, Tomlin said softly. Only once, and then it's on you, human. I don't care if you go live somewhere else in Prithian, but if you cross the wall, if you flee, your family will no longer be cared for. His words were like a stone to the head. If I escaped, if I even tried to run, I might very well doom my family. And even if I dare risk it, even if I succeed in reaching them, where would I take them? I couldn't stow my sisters away on a ship. And once we arrived somewhere else, somewhere safe, we had nowhere to live. But for him to hold my family's well-being against me, to throw away their survival if I stepped out of line. I opened my mouth, but his snarl rattled the glasses. Is that not a fair bargain? And if you flee, then you might not be so lucky with whoever comes to retrieve you next. His claws slipped back under his knuckles. The food is not enchanted or drugged, and it will be your own downfall if you faint. You're going to sit at the table and eat, Feyre, and Lucien will do his best to be polite. He threw a pointed look in his direction. Lucien shrugged. The invisible bonds loosened, and I winced as I whacked my hands on the underside of the table. The bonds on my legs and middle remained intact. One glance at Tomlin's smoldering green eyes and told me all I wanted to know. His guest or not, I wasn't going to get up from this table unless I ate something. I'd think about the sudden change in my plans to escape later. For now, I eyed the silver fork and carefully picked it up. They still watched my every move, the flare of my nostrils as I sniffed the food on my plate. No metallic stench of magic, and fairies couldn't lie, so he had to be right about the food. Then, stabbing a piece of chicken, I took a bite. It was an effort to keep from grunting. I hadn't had this food this good in years. Even the meals we had before our downfall were little more than ashes compared to this. I ate my entire plate in silence, too aware of the high fae observing every bite. But as I reached for a second helping of chocolate tort, the food vanished, just vanished, as if it had never existed, not a crumb left behind. Swallowing hard, I set my fork down so they wouldn't see my hands start to shake, sorry. We good? Still good chat? Also, thanks for all the subs while I was gone. I do appreciate that. Good? All right. One more bite and you'll hurl your guts up, Tomlin said, drinking deeply from his goblet. The bonds holding me loosened. Silent permission to leave. Thank you for your meal, I said. It was all I could think of. Won't you stay for wine? Lucien said with sweet venom from where he lounged in his seat. I braced my hands on my chair to rise. I'm tired. I'd like to sleep. It's been a few decades since I last saw one of you, Lucien drawled. But you humans never change, so I don't think I'm wrong in asking why you found our company to be so unpleasant, when surely the men back home aren't much to look at. At the other end of the table, Tomlin gave his emissary a long, warning look. Lucien ignored it. You're high fae, I said tightly. I'd ask why you'd even bother inviting me here at all, or dining with me, fool. I'd ask why you'd even bother inviting me here at all, or dining with me. Fool, I really should have been killed 10 times over already. Lucien said, true, but indulge me, you're a human, woman, and yet you'd rather eat hot coals than sit here longer than necessary, ignoring this? He waved a hand at the metal eye and a brutal scar on his face. Surely we're not so miserable to look at. Typical fairy vanity and arrogance that, at least, the legends had been right about. I tucked the knowledge away. Unless you have something back home, unless there's a line of suitors out of the door of your hovel that make us seem like worms in comparison. There was enough dismissal there that I took a little bit of satisfaction in saying, I was close with a man back in my village. Before that treaty ripped me away, before it became clear that you were allowed to do as you pleased to us, but we can hardly strike back against you. Tomlin and Lucien exchanged glances, but it was Tomlin who said, are you in love with this man? No, I said as I casually could. It wasn't a lie, but even if I'd felt anything like that for Isaac, my answer would have just been the same. It was bad enough that High Fae now knew my family existed. I didn't need to add Isaac to that list. Again, that shared look between the two males. And do you love anyone else? Tomlin said through clenched teeth. A laugh burst out of me, tingled with hysteria. No? I looked between them. Nonsense. These lethal, immortal beings really had nothing better to do than this? Is this really what you care to know about me? If I find you more handsome than human men? If I have a man back at home, why bother to ask this at all, when I'll be stuck here for the rest of my life? A hot line of anger sliced through my senses. We wanted to learn more about you since you'll be here for a good while, Tomlin said, his lips a thin line. But Lucien's pride tends to get in the way of his manners, he sighed, as if ready to be done with me, and said, "Go rest. We're both busy most days, so if you need anything, ask the staff. They'll help you." "Why?" I asked. "Why be so generous?" Lucian gave me a look that suggested he had no idea either, given that I'd murdered their companion, but Tomlin stared at me for a long moment. "I kill too often as it is," Tomlin said finally, shrugging his broad shoulders. "And you're insignificant enough to ruffle this estate, unless you decide to start killing us." A faint warmth bloomed in my cheeks, my neck. Insignificant. Yes, I was insignificant to their lives, their power, as insignificant as the fading, clipped designs I'd painted around the cottage. "Well," I said. "Not quite feeling grateful at all. Thank you." He gave a distant nod and motioned for me to leave, dismissed like the lowly human I was. Lucian propped his chin on his fist and gave me a lazy half-smile. Enough. I got to my feet and back towards the door. Putting my back to them had been like walking away from a wolf, sparing my life or no. They said nothing when I slipped out the door. A moment later, Lucian's barking laugh echoed into the halls, following by a sharp, vicious growl that shut him up. I slept fitfully that night, and the lock on my bedroom door felt more like a joke than anything. I was wide awake before dawn, but I remained staring at the filigreed ceiling, watching the growing light creep between the drapes, savoring the softness of the down mattress. I was usually out of the cottage by first light, though my sisters hissed at me every morning for waking them so early. If I were home, I'd already be entering the woods, not wasting a moment of precious sunlight, listening to the drowsy chatter of the few winter birds. Instead, this bedroom and the house beyond were silent. The enormous bed, foreign and empty, small part of me missed the warmth of my sisters' bodies overlapping with mine. Nesta must be stretching her legs and smiling at the extra room. She was probably content imagining me in the belly of a fairy, probably using the news as a chance to be fussed over the villagers. Maybe my fate would prompt them to give my family some handouts, or maybe Tomlin had given them enough money or food or whatever he thought taking care of them consisted of to last through the winter. Or maybe the villagers would turn on my family, not wanting to be associated with people tied with Prithian, and run them out of town. I buried my face in the pillow, pulling the blankets tighter. If Tomlin had indeed provided for them, if those benefits ceased the moment I crossed the wall, then they'd likely resent my return more than celebrate it. "Your hair is clean." A pathetic compliment. I suppose that if he'd invited me to live here to spare my life, he couldn't be completely wicked. Perhaps he'd just been trying to smooth over our very, very rough beginning. Maybe there would be some way to persuade him, to find some loophole, to get whatever magic that bound the treaty to spare me. And if not some way, then someone. I was drifting from one thought to another, trying to sort through the jumble, when the lock on the door clicked, and there was a screech and a thud. I bolted upright to find Alice in a heap on the floor. The length of rope I'd made from the curtain trimming now hung loosely from where I'd rigged it to snap into anyone's face. It had been the best I could do with what I had. I'm sorry, I blurted, leaping from the bed, but Alice was already up, hissing at me as she brushed off her apron. She frowned at the rope dangling from the light fixture. "What in the bottomless depths of the cauldron is... I didn't think anyone would be in here so early. And I meant to take it down and..." Alice looked me over from head to toe. "You think a bit of rope snapping in my face will keep me from breaking your bones?" My blood went cold. "You think that will do anything against one of us?" I might have kept apologizing were it not for the sneer she gave me. I crossed my arms. It was a warning bell to give me some time to run, not a trap. She seemed poised to spit on me, but then her sharp brown eyes narrowed. "You can't outrun us either, girl." "I know," I said, my heart calming at last, but at least I wouldn't face my death unaware. Alice barked out a laugh. "My master gave his word that you could live here. Live, not die. We will obey." She studied the hanging bit of rope. "But did you have to wreck those lovely curtains?" I didn't want to. I tried not to, but a hint of smile tugged on my lips. Alice strode over to the remnants of the curtains and threw them open, revealing a sky that was still a deep periwinkle, splashed with lines of pumpkin and magenta from the rising dawn. "I am sorry," I said again. Alice clicked her tongue. "At least you're willing to put up a fight, girl. I'll give you that." I opened my mouth to speak, but another female servant with a bird mask entered, a breakfast tray in hand. She bid me a curt good morning, set the tray on a small table by the window, and disappeared into the attached bathing chamber. The sound of running water filled the room. I sat at the table and studied the porridge and eggs and bacon. Bacon, again. Such similar food to what we ate across the wall. I don't know why I'd expect otherwise. Alice poured me a cup of what looked and smelled like tea, full-bodied, aromatic tea, no doubt, imported at great expense. Hey, Jollz, it's not important, but could you read my recent DMs? I can, yeah. Are we good, though? We still good? Yes? All right. Let's see. Alice poured... Okay. I don't know why I expected otherwise. Alice poured me a cup of what smelled like tea. Full-bodied aromatic tea, no doubt imported at great expense. Prithian and my adjoining homeland weren't exactly easy to reach. What is this place? I asked quietly. Where is this place? It's safe, and that's all you need to know, Alice said, setting down the teapot. At least the house is. If you go poking about the grounds, keep your wits about you. Fine. If she wouldn't answer that, I tried again. What sort of fairy should I look out for? All of them, Alice said. My master's protection only goes so far. They'll want to hunt and kill you just for being a human, regardless of what you did to Andres. Another useless answer. I dug into my breakfast, savoring each rich sip of tea, and she slipped into the bathing chamber. When I was done eating and bathing, I refused Alice's offer and dressed myself in another exquisite tunic. This one, of purple, so deep it could have been black. I wish I knew the name for the color, but cataloged it anyway. I pulled on the brown boots I'd worn the night before, and as I sat before a marble vanity, letting Alice braid my wet hair, I cringed at my reflection. It wasn't pleasing, though not for its actual appearance. While my nose was relatively straight, it was the other features I'd inherited from my mother. I could still remember how her nose would crinkle with her feigned amusement when one of her fabulously wealthy friends made some unfunny joke. At least I had my father's soft mouth, though it made a mockery of my two sharp cheekbones and hollow cheeks. I couldn't bring myself to look at my slightly up-tilted eyes. I knew I'd see Nesta or my mother looking back at me. I'd sometimes wondered if there was why my sister had insulted me about my looks. I was a far cry from ugly, but I bore too much of the people we'd hated and loved for Nesta to stand it, for me to stand it too. Though I suppose that for Tomlin, for high fae used to ethereal, flawless beauty, it had been ethereal, flawless beauty, and it had been a struggle to find a compliment. Fairy bastard. Alice finished my plate, and I jumped from the bench before she could weave in little flowers from the basket she brought. I would have lived up to my namesake were it not for the effects of my poverty. But I never particularly cared. Beauty didn't mean anything in the forest. When I asked Alice what I was to do now, what I was to do with the entirety of my mortal life, she shrugged and suggested a walk in the garden. I almost laughed, but I kept my tongue still. I'd be foolish to push aside potential allies. I doubted she had Tomlin's ear, and I couldn't press her about it yet, but at least a walk provided a chance to glean some sense of my surroundings, and whether there was anyone else who might plead my case to Tomlin. The halls were silent and empty, strange for such a large estate. They mentioned others the night before, but I saw and heard no sign of them. A balmy breeze scented with hyacinth, I realized, if only from Elaine's small garden, floated down the halls, carrying with it pleasant clippings or chirpings of a bunting, a bird I wouldn't hear back home for months, if I ever heard them at all. I was almost to the grand staircase when I noticed the paintings. I hadn't let myself really look yesterday, but now in the empty hall with no one to see me, a flash of color amid a shadowy, gloomy background made me stop. A riot of color and texture that compelled me to face the gilded frame. I'd never seen anything like this. It's just a still life, a part of me said. It was a green glass vase with an assortment of flowers drooping over its narrow top. Blossoms and leaves of every shape and size and color, roses, tulips, morning glory, goldenrod, maiden's lace, peonies. The skill it must have taken to make them look so lifelike, to make them more lifelike. Just a vase of flowers against the dark backgrounds, but more than that, The flowers seemed to be vibrant with their own light, as in defiance of the shadows gathered around them. The mastery needed to make the glass vase hold that light, to bend to that light within the water. As if the vase did indeed have weight to atop its stone pedestal. Remarkable. I could have stared at this for hours. The countless paintings along this hall alone could have occupied my entire day, but garden, plans. Still, I moved on. I couldn't deny that this place was far more civilized than I thought. Peaceful even, if I was willing to admit it. And if the high fate was indeed gentler than human legend and rumor that had led me to believe, then maybe convincing Alice of my misery might not be too hard. If I could win over Alice, convince her that the treaty had been wrong, or demand such payment from me, she might indeed see if there was anything to get me out of this depth. And you, someone said, and I jumped back a step in the light of the open glass doors to the garden. A towering male figure stood silhouetted before me. Tomlin. He wore those warrior clothes, cut close to show off his toned body, and 3 simple knives were now sheathed along his baldric, each long enough to look like it could gut me as easily as his bear claws. His blonde hair had been tied back from his face, revealing those pointed ears and that strange, beautiful mask. "Where are you going?" he said, gruffly enough that it almost sounded like a demand. "You." I wondered if he even remembered my name. It took a moment to will enough strength into my legs to rise from my half-crouch. "Good morning," I said flatly. At least it was a better greeting than you. You said my time was to be spent however I wanted. I didn't realize I was under house arrest. His jaw tightened. "Of course you're not under house arrest." Even as he bit out of the words, I couldn't ignore the sheer male beauty of that strong jaw, the richness of his golden tan skin. He was probably handsome if he ever took off that mask. When he realized that I wasn't going to respond, he bared his teeth in what I was supposed was an attempt at a smile and said, "Do you want a tour?" "No, thank you," I managed to get out, conscious of every awkward motion of my body as I edged around him. He stepped into my path, close enough that he conceded a step back. "I've been sitting inside all morning. I need some fresh air. And you're insignificant enough that you wouldn't be a bother." "I'm fine," I said, casually dodging him. "You've been generous enough." I tried to sound like I meant it. A half smile, not so pleasant, no doubt unused to being denied. "Do you have some sort of problem with me?" "No," I said quietly and walked through the doors. He let out a low snarl. "I'm not going to kill you, Feyre. I don't break my promises." I almost stumbled down the garden steps as I glanced over my shoulder. He stood atop the stairs, as solid and ancient as the pale stones of the manor. Kill, but not harm. Is that enough? Is that another loophole? One that Lucian might use against me or anyone else here? They're under orders not to even touch you. Yet I'm still trapped in your realm. For breaking a rule I didn't know existed. Why was your friend even in the woods that day? I thought the treaty banned your kind from entering our lands. He just stared at me. Perhaps I'd gone too far, questioned him too much. Perhaps he could tell why I really asked. "That treaty," he said quietly, "doesn't ban us from doing anything except for enslaving you. The wall is an inconvenience. If we cared to, we could shatter it and march through and kill you all. I might be forced to live in Prythian forever, but my family," I dared ask. "And do you care to destroy the wall?" He looked me up and down, as if deciding whether I was worth the effort of explaining. "I have no interest in the mortal lands, though I can't speak for my kind." But he still hadn't answered my question. "Then what was your friend doing there?" Tomlin stilled. Such an earthy, primal grace, even to his breathing. "There is a sickness in these lands, across Prythian. There has been for almost 50 years now. It is why his house and those lands are so empty. Most have left. The blight spreads slowly, but it has made magic act. Strangely, my own powers are diminishing due to it. Those masks," he tapped on his, "are the result of a surge if that occurred during a masquerade 49 years ago. Even now, we can't remove them." Oh, okay. Stuck in masks for nearly 50 years, I would have gone mad. Would have peeled my skin off my face. You didn't have a mask as a beast, and neither did your friends. The blight is cruel like that. Either live as a beast or live with a mask. What sort of sickness is it? It's not a disease, not a plague or illness. It's focused solely on magic, on those dwelling in Prythian, Andres was across the wall that day because I sent him to search for a cure. Can it hurt humans? My stomach twisted. Will it spread over the wall? Yes, he said. There's a chance of it affecting mortals and your territory. More than that, I don't know. It's slow moving, and your kind is safe for now. We haven't had any progression in decades. Magic seems to have stabilized, even though it's been weakened. That he'd ever admitted so much spoke volumes about how he imagined my future. I was never going home, never going to encounter another human to whom I might spill the secret vulnerability. A mercenary told me she believed fairies might be thinking of attacking. Is it related? A hint of a smile, perhaps a bit surprised. I don't know. Do you talk to mercenaries often? I talk to whoever bothers to tell me anything useful. He straightened, and it was only his promise not to kill me that kept me from cringing. Then he rolled his shoulders, as if shaking off his annoyance. Was the tripwire you rigged in your room for me? I sucked on my teeth. Can you blame me if I was? I might take an animal form, but I am civilized, Pharaoh. So he did remember my name, at least. But I looked pointedly at his hands, at the razor-sharp tips of those long, curved claws poking through his tan skin. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, 5 gifted Karen. Thank you for that. Duchess with a primer. Sid with a gifted. Thank you for that. Appreciate you guys. Sorry, where did I leave off at? She did not remember my name, at least. So he did remember my name, at least. But I looked pointedly at his hands, at the razor-sharp tips of those long, curved claws poking through his tan skin. Noting my stare, he tucked his hands behind his back. He said sharply, I'll see you at dinner. It wasn't a request, but I still gave him a nod, and as I strode off between the hedges, not caring where I was going, only that he stayed far behind. A sickness in their lands, affecting their magic, draining it from them, a magic blight that might one day spread to the human world. After so many centuries without magic, we'd be defenseless against it, against whatever it could do to humans. I wondered if any of the High Fae would bother warning my kind. It didn't take me long to know the answer. And we are done with chapter 7. We're on chapter 8 now. All right. Is Tomlin the love interest? I'm not sure. It's seeming that way, but I'm not sure. So that little recap, I would read more, but I literally read that entire chapter and you guys didn't even hear it. So Miss Linny with the 24 months, 2 years. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. So the recap of that chapter is basically she's kind of getting used to Lucian and talking to Lucian and Tomlin, and they're basically just telling her that they're not going to kill her, and she ate the food, she ate a ton of food, she's kind of getting herself situated within the mansion, or the manor I should say, and started kind of walking around, exploring a little bit, trying to understand a little bit, found out about the magic that is affecting the High Fae, and they're forced to wear masks, and that's very interesting, and they're looking for a cure, and it's spreading, yeah. So, yeah,